what were some of the challenges? You're making it sound too easy. Like you guys just got hit by the lucky
Oh
stick.
no. Right. My goodness.
What
I
were
was
some of
having I was having this conversation with my father the other day, and I was telling him, Dad, it's incredible because you see and you hear all these stories about how people make it, or
yeah.
how people sort of like, oh my God, Tom's shoes, look at that, this guy just thought about it and suddenly he's making
And
millions.
voila, it just took off. But there's a
But
behind the scene,
there's a
there's
behind
things
the
going on.
scenes
Yeah.
that requires a lot of dedication, a lot of focus, a lot of reviewing your strategy, your value chain, understanding what you're trying to do, and having that passion for it. Because not one, but you are going to be tempted to leave everything more than once,
Yeah.
because it's very hard. It's very hard. It is, it takes a lot of convincing, not only other people, but convincing yourself that you're
Yeah.
doing the right thing.
To keep going.
And exactly. So you have to have your short-term wins, which is what keeps you afloat. You need to have a long-term strategy, which is, okay, I am going to reach $10 million by 2005, and I'm going to fund $1 million into education. And in the meantime, in the first 6 months, I've already made my 100,000. I've already contributed three. Today, we've already made 1 million, and we've contributed, close to 80,000. Because if you compound that, we haven't reached the 100,000 because we started with three. But you see, those short-term wins are what keep you alive, or what keep you going. And then you have your long-term, and it requires diligence, probably is the word. Just stay focused, and committed, and make sure that the passion is there. That you're doing something with passion.
It's funny that you speak about that, the short term wins. I don't know. It was just over the weekend, and I've been telling my friends this: celebrate the small wins. And I had a problem with that. I tell my friends what I'm doing, and a lot of people, they don't get it. They're like, "You're interviewing who? Social entrepreneurs? What is quarter waters? Quarter waters? That sounds crazy." First off, the name doesn't even have anything to do with what I'm doing. But the reason why I picked the name Quarter Waters is because over here in the States, there used to be a drink called Quarter Waters back when we were kids. And the reason why I named the website that is because when I was a child, I used to drink that all the time. And it reminded me of my childhood. And when we were kids, we used to dream of these crazy ideas, but you couldn't tell us no. Our imagination ran wild. And that's the feeling I want to inspire to people today, that your imagination could still run wild. You could still do whatever you dream of. And this is a new website, and I have been able, I think you're like my 14th interview, and I had to celebrate over the weekend. Like, dude, I'm doing this. I'm reaching out to social entrepreneurs, and they're hitting me back, and we're having amazing interviews. My goal is to create a big community. But before I reach that stage, I have to do the initial work. And while I'm doing the initial work, I make sure I celebrate the small victories, because this is what keeps me going. This is how I stay motivated and look forward to tomorrow's interview. Just keep building, keep building. Talk about it a little bit more. At what point did you have to remind yourself? Can you give us like an exact moment when you said, "Man, I gotta remind myself to celebrate the small wins and keep going"?
Yes, there's been several of those, but Galapagos is not an easy community.
Yeah.
And I guess no community is easy once you're trying to introduce a new concept and a new way of doing things. You see, Dwight, change is a constant in our lives,
Yeah.
but it's the only constant variable in our lives. We
Only
just,
change.
yeah, you see what I'm saying? I mean, people tend to gravitate around control. And if you have control around things, you feel comfortable. And you don't realize that change is a constant in your life. So when you bring a new concept, when you bring something that's different, when you bring a different angle to a community, It's very hard sometimes, and you find a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
And I've had some of those in the Galapagos, and I've kept my commitment, and I've shown the results. And at one point, as we were shifting from the relationship that we had with the local NGO to the larger Outward Bound Foundation, where I'm now the at the board of Outward Bound International. So I oversee the 40 schools around the world in that board. So it was a natural shift for us. We had some of that. We had some of those low moments,
Yeah.
people just, sort of just not liking the fact that we were moving into a bigger structure, and that at that point, you really have to focus on the long-term goals, and make sure that you are achieving and that you are explaining people why are you making those choices and those moves. It's very important to what I explained before. Compassion.
Yeah.
Compassion is a key pillar in Outward Bound, and compassion is what makes us human. And compassion and empathy is very important, to put yourself in someone else's shoes before uttering the first word of advice.
Yeah.
And I that's what I had to do. I really had to, like, really focus, understand what this community was telling me, and then move on. So that was a challenging situation for me.
All right, man. See, this is just great, man, because like we said a little bit earlier, people hear the story of successful people, whatever it is, whatever you do and you're successful. And, I guess the way how society is programmed, we just think success, it came easy, man, how are they doing that? But people really need to start to understand this takes a lot of work. Like you said, it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of self-energizing. Sometimes you have to be your biggest hype support. You have to be your biggest supporter to say, look, you have a goal, execute.